Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who can always tell whether it's an actual blueberry pie or a blueberry pie candle or a blueberry pie air freshener. It's John Levingood.
This goes back to eighth grade, and like my friends' moms would always cue us in. It's like, guys, let me smell your breath when you come in at midnight. And they'd be like, it smells like spearmint and cigarettes. I think that candle would smell like candle wax and blueberry pie.
Yeah, you would
Like,
know.
right? Unless you have like the truly obnoxious, like Bed Bath and Beyond or Kirkland's candles that smell like cinnamon bun and they smell so strong that you're like, that's like too much. I'm gonna like pass out
Mm-hmm.
from this like saccharine cinnamon bun smell. But if it's not overkill, I feel like you're gonna know it's a candle.
Yeah.
I mean, call me crazy, but like if I'm knocking door to door, like Mark, you have a few moments to discuss our Dark Lord Cthulhu. I feel like you put out a candle, I'm immediately going to start noticing that candles because there's always a candle smell under the smell,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So I don't know if these girls were just constantly kind of on their toes with the questions he was asking. They don't have time to think of these trivial nuances, so they're just noticing that it smells like the pie. But that's a thing. I think that's part of the distraction. If he wasn't so actively engaged, I don't think the illusion of the pie scented candle would have worked so well.
Well, I mean, that make all makes sense because it's spoiler. So if you haven't watched Heretic, because I'm gonna release this pretty soon. John and I normally release an episode a few months go by. I drop it because I like to have a long, like a deep bench of episodes in case something happens. Hey, John, we're letting people know how the magic works here. So we'll record an episode 4 months later. I release it. This one I'm going to drop pretty soon. So spoilers for the movie Heretic. Go watch it. It's brilliant. It's wonderful. Go watch it. I ordered the A24 Blu-ray. I'm going to have a commentary soon. I've done a lot of research on it. It's brilliant. I went to a press screening where they handed out pies during the middle of it, and it's like it was supposed to be an immersive screening, which is cool. But you're kind of watching a movie, and then everyone's just like dealing with plastic wrapped blueberry pie, and you're like, well, this is kind of distracting. But maybe they were trying to distract me. But the whole point of the movie, John, is control. So he lit that candle because he knew he could control the situation. Like he's that cocky. But I mean, it blew up in his face. But that's something he would do for kicks, right? Kicks and control. Like I'm so cheeky. I am Hugh Grant cheeky. I'm gonna get you in here, and you're not gonna notice it's a candle because of all my vocal wizardry. Would you agree?
Sure. Although there's another question to be asked. Since we learned that there really was a pie, was that pie actually baking at the same time that he had the blueberry scented candle lit? Were they arguably smelling both scents at once?
Yeah, because that pie
Or
is fresh.
or was that an old pie and it was with his coven of zealots the whole time, like 50 feet below them?
I mean, the way that well, he didn't know they were coming. So that, but that
No, no,
pie's
he
pretty
did.
fresh. Oh, yeah, he
He
did.
did
Yeah,
because
because of the
the
list.
girls had literally a
Yeah.
schedule.
And so they smelt it. He just two fronts. You know what's funny? If they noticed it was a candle immediately, he'd be like, oh, here's the pie. He would have walked it out. So he's covering all his bases.
Well, but if they ate the pie, then it would have ruined the experiment.
No, no. Uh, this movie, John, Heretic is a reason why, directed by Scott Beck, Bryan Woods. The cinematography is gorgeous by Chung Hoon Chung, Park Chan Wook's guy who did Old Boy, like some of the best Stoker, like incredible films. Like production design, Philip Messina, really great crew. I mean, Hugh Grant, Golden Globe nominated, Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East. They're both incredible. They both are former. So I got a new A24 book where there's a bunch of mazes in it, and it's for Heretic because I'm a member of the AAA 24, and they're both two former Mormons, and Chloe's brother had done a mission, and so they knew like a lot of the questions to ask. They knew it's scary to go into these homes, and like this is a movie. The reason I'm saying this is the reason why I love Heretic is it's why I love the horror genre because you go into this thing thinking, oh, it's going to be Hugh Grant, cheeky Hugh Grant, tortured, blah 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 blah, but it turns out to be this Now listen, it doesn't solve all the issues of Christianity, and nothing ever will, or religion in that matter. Like, it's the surface isn't even scratched, but I mean, it's been around for thousands of years and no one's even scratched it. So I'm not going to dock it for that, and you shouldn't. But what I love though is it snuck in a really interesting conversation about religion and control, and it does it in a fun way. So I think if this was just a film with two Mormon missionaries and a grumpy old man debating in his living room while they eat pie and not get poisoned, it would never get made. But instead, making this film and attaching that element to it, it gets made. And what I love, we've watched a lot enough horror, John. Like, you sneak in messages about, like stress, grief, trauma, motherhood, like consumerism, you know, playing God. And like, I think horror does a great job of that. And that's why I really like Heretic.
Yeah, yeah. Heretic for me was like a lecture hall repartee, although it feels more like a philosophy class where the professor is actively engaging his audience of students who have just read up on, a whole bunch of philosophical precepts. And so the dueling ground is clearly favored towards the professor who has his goal, but it still is this movie is very much the kind of Socratic reasoning where he's leading the students, or in this case, sisters Barnes and Paxton. He's asking questions where he knows what the retort would be, and he's leading them down a path, and they think they're giving a retort, but really it's just the next domino that he had planned to get them somewhere and to get them to believe or to realize the thing that he wanted to through the Socratic reasoning, right? Teach someone by questions kind of situation. Although the whole time they think they're trying to figure him out, break him down, right? And find I don't mean weak point like his weakness, but find the path to see how he will realize he needs to be saved. He already knows their script. They just don't know his.
And what's interesting too is they know more than they like when it comes to like there's a thing at the end when Sister Paxton's like, yeah, I saw that your hair was wet. I know that you got me down here. I like that Sophie, like Sister Barnes is like, she calls him out for his simplistic monopoly view. She's like, that's just really basic. Like, so there's people out there who complain that this movie is like it's just like it doesn't go in depth. But I mean, there's no time for any of the religion in this film to go in depth because he's reading off a script. He's trying to challenge these two. Like, John, if we go into a coffee shop and we start arguing with somebody about religion, we're not going to touch a lot of it. It's just going to be arguing. It's like we're not going to solve religion in that conversation. So people complain about that with this movie, and it kind of bothers me. But I like that Sister Paxton is kind of in on him a little bit. I like that Sophie Thatcher calls him out a little bit, and I like that they push him to places where he has to improv. Like they keep him on his toes, even though he's controlling it, and I think it creates this really nice back and forth between the groups and him. So it's not like this one-sided thing where Sister Paxton and Sister Barnes are completely helpless, and they do play with that to a certain extent. But I like that they're they un, they know more than they let on, and like I like that about them. Like, I think it's quite interesting the way that they play it, and it's just like what's interesting. I read your review on Movie Sons of Flicks, and you said that this movie would be good for mostly agnostics, not people who are like believers. But I think this would be an interesting film, and I paraphrase that, but I think this would be an interesting film for believers to watch, just to be like, oh, okay, this is what people think, this is what we should discuss, this is what are on people's minds. Like, it's almost a good way to understand where the world's at. So I think almost believers should watch this film to
Yeah,
like,
but I said that because it's going to be triggering to a lot of them who don't know what the
yeah,
movie is ahead of time like we
true.
do.
Yeah. I mean, I guess people would definitely be triggered. Oh, it's an attack. It's like, no, this is more of a conversation. I think this is more of like a way to debate. But like, everyone's so okay. One thing I want to talk about before we go too far. This movie introduces Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton almost perfectly. Like, they're sitting on a bench in a beautiful, like maybe Pacific Northwest town. They're talking about Magnum condoms, and then like they're just, but it's hilarious. And then Sister Barn Paxton tells a story about watching a porn that's like amateur and like how it kind of the two people were going at it, but someone in the next room's like, "Shut up," and they looked mortified. And then just watching them talk about their singing voices, and then they get harassed by the locals in the town. Like one is Sister Paxton gets pants for magic underwear. They do a great job though of making these two really likable from the jump. Did you feel that as
Mhm.
well?
Yeah, I think so. And it was also, I mean, that Magnum condom thing was actually a great preface too, because we're basically hearing her believe that Magnum condoms are really the same size as regular condoms because someone said that to her, and it was all just marketing to make like men feel better about themselves or something. And then the other one's like, no, no, elephant trunk. Like but like we're already prefacing the belief, why you believe it, and how hard it is to crack that belief from the very opening of this.
Mm-hmm.
And as they're having this conversation, the opening credits are framing the shot like a lobby card that you might find in the welcome lobby in a church.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
so many neat things there, but yeah, they were very likable and very humanized and affable in their discussions and what they endured with the locals, and yeah, the people who weren't interested in whatever the hell they were offering, and very likable characters. And the funny thing is that I think inherently, when if we were to just like know what the premise is, we assume we're not going to like them.
Mm-hmm.
We might assume without watching any of the movie that we're kind of going to be rooting for Hugh Grant, Mr. Reed, right, to break down these annoying door to door kind of religion peddlers with their canned delivery, and the
Mm-hmm.
other thing is that these girls were a bit more smooth than I think the average, I guess I'll call it mission student would be. No real experience in this, but it's a little more manicured. They make their mistakes and everything, but it's a little more manicured and it's a little more likable than I think reality would often offer on an average baseline. So, but yeah, they're great characters. I think it's
Great. I think Chloe East might be the MVP of this film. Like just her delivery, and I'm gonna take this door, and this is okay, and just like her can-do attitude. Like I just love the strength that she finds in this, and like she became really endearing throughout. And you know what else I like too, John, is like I feel like horror movies when you bring in a lot of like Christianity to horror movies, you have the first Omen, evil nuns, and then you have what is it, Immaculate, evil nuns, and you have The Mist, fundamentalist, insane Christians. Pretty much anything Stephen King writes, you really get this sort of one dimensional Christian. I mean, you do get good like exorcists, there's priests and The Conjuring stuff like that. But in regards to these characters, like I feel like we've seen a lot of movies where it's like always like the conservative Christian people or whatever are just kind of brats and selfish and stuck up. Like they treat these two like humans. And East and Thatcher both said since they came from the church, they didn't want to be caricatures. They wanted to like because these people who go on missions are humans and they're probably scared and they're probably lonely. So I mean, I like that they weren't treated as like idiots. They both are good at verbal sparring. Like it's just nice to see characters sort of like I just think in the horror territory, a lot of these characters would have ended up completely different than what they are. So I like that they didn't become caricatures, if that makes sense. Like it's almost a
mhm,
refreshing take on them, which I
yeah.
like. Yeah.
Certainly, and simultaneously to that is that so we like them when I don't think that we're supposed to. Well, again, but just reading the premise, I assume I'm not going to like them. Even watching the trailer, even though they seem perfectly fine, I assume that I'm going to be rooting against them. And when I'm watching this, I'm not rooting for them. I'm not rooting against them. Hugh Grant is so damn charming.
Yeah. Yeah.
I might be rooting for him just because I like Hugh Grant movies, and it's so like interesting to me seeing him play this villainous role. But truly, like I'm not rooting for someone to win this argument that they're having, these ongoing repartees. I'm actually every time it's almost like when you're watching a football game or a whatever kind of competition that anyone likes to watch, you don't want to see a blowout. Like I'm a Gators fan, and like it can be, if you just score like a touchdown every 10 minutes and before you know it, it's like 49 to nothing. Like it's not Okay, sometimes that's fun, but that's not always fun. Sometimes that's just kind of boring. You don't feel the you're not intense. You don't need to keep your eyes on the screen because they're not going to play as well if you look away. You know what I mean? Or go to the bathroom before a commercial break. They don't need you to be watching the way that you normally feel that. You don't need to be there. But when the game is close and you win, it's so much more satisfying when it's earned, when it's someone came and really brought it and you came and overcame. So when they give a great argument, I'm like, oh, what's you gonna do? Right. And then Hugh brings something, I'm like, uh-oh, the girls just took a good blow. Like it feels more like that. Like I want both sides to bring it because that just keeps elevating my intrigue. And a lot of people don't like this kind of setting because like I want to get away from the idea of a chamber thriller and instead call the first two-thirds of this movie a one-act play.
I
It's like a
agree.
one
Yeah.
act
Yeah.
where it's one scene, it's a bunch of people at a table in the middle of the theater stage, and it's relying entirely on the dialogue. And some people find that mind numbing and because they came for a show, and other people look at this as the intellectual show that it is. But like, if you don't like highbrow horror, and I don't mean snooty, but like really thoughtful horror, I don't know that you're going to enjoy this at all.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. And again, unless you're a Hugh Grant fan or something, right? Unless there's something close to home for you in this movie, because again, literally the first half of this conversation is a conversation in one room. The next quarter of the movie is a conversation that just continues in another room with some different props, which could have just as well been in the first room in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then the last quarter, if you will, quarter or third of the movie, then we've properly pushed our way into a more conventional feeling of horror, right? But this is an interesting movie in that way.
And I think what's interesting too is it does enough to keep you like so in the screening when he's like, yeah, the house is made of metal, sorry. And then everyone in the theater laughed. Like they all just cracked up. He's like, oh, because like it's such a funny line. But then as you get going, you're like, is the wife there? And then he starts asking the questions about like polygamy. Like I like that Paxton's like, it's sketch for sure. And they're like, well, it's not necessary anymore. Like, which is a good way of like it's back and forth, and they kind of have good jokes. And I think they also set up the fast food thing where they're like, what's this? Oh, Checkers is this version of this, and this is this version of this. And they end up deciding on Wendy's, which kind of makes me happy. But they do a good job of that. But also, like when he goes back to get the pie, and when they get their coats later, and the keys have switched, and then when the door is locked, like they do a good job of like if this is a one act play, I would still love it. But I do like that this movie still keeps some tension in there. The girls are definitely naive, but I think he has that target. Like he's not going to go after punk rockers. Like I think they came to his house and he can manipulate them, or he thinks he can. So I think I liked how the conversation flows beautifully, but then also there's a little bit of tension involved, but it's also playful. Like it's a playful tension, especially with Hugh Grant, I think is what you're going to get. But I dig that version. Like I like that. Like you don't quite know what his danger is, and then he pulls out the box cutter and you learn. But it's and like also too like Sophie Thatcher, she's kind of the tougher one, and she tells Sister Paxton she gives her like a blade, a screwdriver, and she's like, "You hold this. He's watching me too closely." So like she knows that he's watching her because she's the threat that he perceives, and he did kind of perceive that. So it's I don't know. I dig like you said, it's not a blowout game. They're definitely like he has home field advantage, but I do like that he never keeps racking points up on the board. It's a really like it's just a really fine line that they walk, and I think the directors, writers, they wrote this part for Hugh Grant, and he prepared extensively for this, and you can tell that he loves every second of this role. Like he just owns it. Like that Monopoly bit is pure gold. It's just funny. No, it's just once again, man, it's the reason why I love horror movies is you can sneak something like this in, and you can tackle messages that would never get made if it was just a regular film. So I definitely appreciate that about it. And I also like how the quotes keep getting, like she's like, "Oh, Spider-Man." He's like, "Oh, Voltaire." Like that's just like it's a quick, funny, well written film, and like yeah, I don't think I'd see this movie working with any three other people. Like I don't. Does this movie work without Hugh Grant?
You grant it's going to be really tough, right? Because even if you have someone who is just as charming, I think that the movie relies on the audience coming into the movie, seeing Hugh Grant and already being like this charming guy. You know what I mean? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how charming someone is on screen because you're learning that they're charming. They're like, oh, he's just being Hugh Grant. This is Hugh Grant being charming Hugh Grant. You've just immediately you just get it,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So that now the actresses did a wonderful job. Do I think this could have been done with other actresses? Yeah, I do. It's in no way to dismiss the outstanding jobs they did, but I mean, you said it yourself. This was written for Hugh Grant, and
Yeah.
that seems to be the keystone of this working for me. Of course, you again though it's we talk about, or actually we haven't in a long time. But we used to talk about Scott Adkins movies and certain action movies, and the fact is that Scott Adkins movies sometimes suck. And you're like, how can this old Scott Adkins movie suck? It's like because none of the people they hired can keep up with him, and he can't look good if other people don't have the skill to make him look good, right? It doesn't matter if you have a certified ninja if everyone coming at him is a bunch of mooks. So like you need to have people with who can bring the gravitas of their roles to again keep points on the board for both teams credible. Let's come back to our sports
Well, but
analogy.
like look at Bloodsport, Chong Li, Bolo Young, amazing. If the villain wasn't good, it wouldn't work. Like it's like you need a good hero, you need a good villain, you need people who can keep up with the star. Like that's why the John Wick movies are great because of all the stunt, like huge luminaries they bring in to fight him. So
Mm-hmm.
they even bring in Scott Adkins to fight him. So I think you're
Mm-hmm.
right. Like I think they found like the two right leads who had a history, with the LDS, and like they knew it. Like I don't think they were playing a role because they knew it. And I think that also helped it as well. And I have a question for you. So Mr. Reed, it's Mr. Reed, but I like that he's called Mr. Read, which is kind of a great gag, Mr. Reed. But do you think that he actually went on this exploration to tackle every religion and became jaded? Like, do you think he's just a psychopath who has a basic YouTube knowledge? Because, he definitely has all the books, but when he's talking about Horus, when he's talking about, the savior myths, when he's talking about Krishna, like, he's not really correct. Like, on a most superficial of things, he's has a point, but upon further evaluation and he gets called out on it, he's really not that correct. Like he was just kind of using generalizations. So do you think that he was wrong on purpose? Do you think he knew all this? Like what do you see as his backstory?
To be fair, I thought that he was more correct and that when he was called out on poor grounds.
Oh, okay. But like
Like when she says no one's even addressing the fact that Horus has a bird's head. It's irrelevant to this. You know what I mean? Like she thought that was a good point,
okay.
and
But I mean,
I find it truly irrelevant.
I guess if you look into it though, like so he says Horus was crucified, but like in all the myths, Horus, I guess, wasn't crucified. When they're talking about Krishna, like he was like born to a king and princess, and like he has a different story. So I think he's saying that it's all um basically what he's some of the facts that he drops are incorrect. But I think
Okay.
he's correct in saying that, like, look at Christmas, John, like the winter
Well, they're
solstice and
iterations.
Odin. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Like, look at Odin, like Odin and Santa Claus, and look at all these different people who, in some way, like even though Horus, what he said doesn't hold up, even though Krishna doesn't really hold up, some of the things that he was saying make sense because they're building on top of each other, and they have maybe the same dates around the same ages. So you have this kind of world where especially with Christmas, like where did Santa Claus come from? Well, he didn't really become Santa until Coke got a hold of him. And before that, like thousands of years prior, they had what winter festivals where they partied before it became too cold. And that's like the Odin myth that brought into it. And then the presents and like how and then is he a saint? Is he a Saint Nick? Like I think they all built on top of each other. So when you look at like religion through thousands of years, you definitely see similarities. So I think if he just would have been like, there's similarities between all of them. Is that a coincidence? Is it not? So it's kind of just interesting that he drops this big speech. And I think you're right. Like Horus has a bird head and other things like that. But I think they both have good points, if that makes sense, even though they're not fully articulated, which maybe they can't be. I mean, she's like sitting in a house with like dude who locked her in with metal ropes. So I mean, you're trying your best, but it's just kind of interesting. So I don't know. Do you think he was incorrect on purpose? Do you think he like what do you think was his play here?
One thing I thought was weird about that, because I don't remember my mythology super well, but I was into it to such extent that I actually took a couple courses of it
Yeah.
for like electives in college. But like I feel like what he said about Horus was more accurate about Osiris, because Osiris was essentially crucified and that Set chopped him up into like 8 pieces or whatever, sent him to the corners of the earth, and then he resurrected in undeath, if you will, and became the god of the dead, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's weird to me that that wasn't the example
Yeah.
being given. I don't remember enough about Horus, but I don't know what was going on with the things that were incorrect or not, and I don't know how correct he was about Horus. I just know it made me think about something else. I don't know if all these 12 gods before Jesus were also born on December 25th or not, like he says. That's a very specific thing to bring up. But again, I guess it's all about the iterations. Part of me wonders if the writers are pulling a light, fast one to fast track his
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
poignant iteration talk, because I don't think that the goal is to make him seem ill-studied on these details when he's clearly so incredibly thoughtfully studied on so many of the other things discussed.
No, yeah, it's just an interesting wrinkle, right? But I do think,
Yeah.
okay, and bear with me here. Like, you know how some people, when like, I'm not going to name any names, but like, let's say there's like big podcasters, big radio personalities. I'm not saying
So
he's that.
split.
Yeah. But when like shock jocks or anything like that, when you start like sharing your opinions and you start like controlling people, I do think you like you think you've become this authority on things because you're so used to like being right and control
Sure.
that sometimes you are wrong. Like you just assume it. Does that make sense? Like I think sometimes when truthers, like sometimes like, I call them truthers where they're like, okay, this isn't real. Well, this is real. And I said it here first. And then their truthers get like crazier and crazier and crazier the bigger and bigger they get. And then eventually they just kind of fall off because they've kind of lost their minds a little bit in like being a truther. Do you think that has any point with him? Because he doesn't, like he has to improv. Like I think he's become so confident in his ways in a way that he almost doesn't think of other things anymore. Like I have like cult leaders in the past, John. How knowledgeable do you think they were versus how charismatic were they?
Right, right. And how confident, sure. That's it.
I
Yeah,
didn't prep you for that, but still.
no, it's a curious point you're bringing up though, because our character doesn't seem specifically egomaniacal or sociopathic. He seems to be a very happy mixture of both. He has less of the oddity of sociopathy, but he he's more, I don't know if open to discourse is the right word, right? But he doesn't seem absolute. He just seems to me more convinced that he's correct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But again, it's I think it's a little of column A and column B there, right? Whereas I think our cult leaders stereotypically, it's more of again the drunk with power and everything that I say is the way, and you almost don't have to look into anything else. But they're coming with the antithesis of our sisters in that they're responding to those who are lost looking and or have become zealots, right?
Mm, mm-hmm.
And but yeah, yeah. So I don't have a good answer for you, Mark, other than it's an interesting character. But I do feel like I do think though that he's very convinced he's correct though when he's giving his opinions. Like especially when they were talking about the Book of Mormon and he gave his example of polygamy, and she was saying why it was a way to get more followers at the time, and then when that was not required anymore, that practice was ended. And he said, well, I'm just concerned that this was being used as a way to basically sleep with a bunch of women frivolously because he wanted to, right? And then it was called out upon and waved away as testament or something like that. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but when he said that, he seemed absolutely convinced that he was saying 2 + 2 was 4 and she was saying 2 + 2 was 5. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So even though it at the surface level it looks like they're having a discourse, it doesn't seem like they're discussing things trying to find an answer. It seems like he's just trying to get her to see his way. And granted, she is in a way doing that, right. Oh no, this, that, and the other, but she's intellectualizing to come to what she thinks is, well, I guess what falls within her belief. But it doesn't seem so absolute. While she's confident in it, it's not. Boy, I don't even know where I'm going with. Boy, this is really taking me
Well, there's a belief with
all
her, right?
all
And
over the
sometimes you can't
place.
articulate your belief. And I do think sometimes that since he's studied so much religion, he's come to the only thing that's control. The church controls. I mean, if you look back in before people could read, right? Like the no one could read the Bible, so they were told what the passages were. There's control there. The printing press changed a lot, but I mean, when it comes to control with you go to confession, you go to pray, you go to the pastors, you tithe, you are sinners, you will go to hell if you do not do this. And I think there is an element of control to religion. Like there's a most certainly that. So I think he's gotten to the point where he's just so against it. Like I don't know, like I think sometimes no matter what you say to people, they're not going to agree with you. Like I don't want to I don't want to go too into depth, but with my family, one of my family members was in the military, and they had a public relations job, and they were talking about what their job was, and someone else in our family goes, "So you're just a propagandist?" And so he's like, "Well, no." He's like, "Yeah, you just share propaganda." So like anything that this person said about their job was not going to change. That this person was just like, "You do propaganda." So I think anything that the sisters say, he's probably ready to combat that, right? So you're right. This isn't a change my mind. This isn't a fair debate. Like this is all just him controlling the dominoes, I think. Yeah, he doesn't really want to learn anything about them, but I think that's what gets him done is I think he does overlook them because he doesn't even think that that could happen to him because he thinks Paxton's going to cave and she doesn't. So it's and she notices his mistakes with the pie. The when the lady just falls face first in the pie and turns her head. Like I think there's some really interesting. I don't know. But this is why I like it. I like that they don't go into depth about his backstory. They don't tell quite what his plan was or when it started, but they seem like he's grown used to that control. And I think when you have that control, you probably don't. You probably think you have the upper hand on anybody, right? But that leaves you open for a counterpunch, I think. And he gets counterpunched. I think
He
that
gets
makes sense.
counter stabbed.
Yeah, he gets counter stabbed. And also, I want to say the production design by Philip Messina, he worked on Mother. And then Chung Hoon Chung directed like Old Boy and like Thirst. So I think the directors cast or hired two perfect people who are really good at featuring memorable houses and prisons that are also kind of like prisons because Old Boy had the prison, Mother becomes like this horrifying place. So I like how intelligent like these directors, right? They hired two former people who are in the Mormon faith. They picked up Hugh Grant because he said he was tired of comedies and all these types of films. And they hired two people who have done films not like this, but similar to this, who make gorgeous sets. It's like this is just like a really cool production that was made for cheap, but it looks beautiful. I don't know. Like,
Oh, it
did you
looks
know?
gorgeous.
Like, remember when he's talking next to the books and the books match his sweater? So when Mr. Reed is talking, if you look really carefully, it's just good production design, but and good prop work. But his sweater matches his books. Like, I love the warm color palette. Like, I like how the house becomes. At first it looks tiny, but there's a lot more to it than you see, and it's just a really good product. And I think I think the speech about monopoly within Landlord's Game and like Ultimate Banking and Bob Ross, and just the Phantom Menace jokes with Jar Jar, like
Jar
that
Jar.
was very dated, by the way, which I kind of love. But I think what I like about this movie is when someone like really sort of dislikes religion, and then there's a religious person, they're not gonna like they're probably not going to come to an understanding. They're probably just going to argue their points and get annoyed, and they're not going to dive too deep into theology. And I think that's what this movie does well is he's not diving into theology. A lot of it stays surface level, but that's his game because you know neither's going to believe the other. So I just think that's really smart. It seems like a conversation that you would witness in a college campus, or you're in a bar somewhere, or you're out somewhere, or you have uh, a family member who's the complete opposite of you. Like, I feel like this is the way that the argument would go. Like, no one's gonna just drop the like the deepest theology on the planet about all of these religions. So it's I don't know. I just think it's interesting. I think it's a well written script
Yeah,
because
that's actually a good point, by the way, about how this would go down. The very religious and the very unreligious.
right. And like no, you're not going to change. Like what social judgment theory is, like latitudes of rejection and acceptance. Like, if you hate the church and you despise it, you're not going to really want to get into a theological argument with somebody. And if you're one of those people who's just a diehard fundamentalist, you're not going to want to hear somebody who had hard times in the church and doesn't believe. I'm just speaking generally. I'm not saying everyone, but yeah, I think this movie does a good job of that, and it keeps it moving in a way that also isn't about supernatural shenanigans. It's about control. And I think that's really interesting that as opposed to like resurrections and all of this, he's just trying to hoodwink these two so he can have another lady slave he can poison and lock in a horrible thing and cut their nails occasionally. There's the worst nail cutting in this movie, John. But I don't know, I just find it interesting. It's an interesting product, and I'm glad that people like it. Like it's done well on IMDb. It has like a 7.1. It has a 93% tomato meter score. I think people generally like this film, but which makes me happy because I think horror hounds are watching it and they're not outright hating it like some of the more art house horror. But I also think it's slightly more accessible for people who don't like horror. I don't know if you agree.
No, I think I can get Sarah to watch this. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my wife does not want, unless it's like a distinct horror comedy, like Shaun of the Dead. Some throat flesh
Tucker
gets
and
ripped
Dale.
out and there's some guts, but she likes Shaun of the Dead because at the end of the day, you're laughing a lot more than it's gross, right? Ready or Not, she enjoyed Ready or Not, for
Oh,
example.
that's
Like
great.
she Tucker and Dale loves Tucker and Dale, but if it's not specifically a horror comedy, like it is, it's like, what are you trying to fool me into watch? No, no, no. Like it's very, very hard line. I was watching this, my first watch of this, and every now and then I'd know because she's upstairs in the landing, and the living room that I'm in is right at the bottom of the stairs. So she's upstairs watching one thing, and I'm downstairs watching another. And every now and then I notice that her TV has been paused or muted, but realistically paused, right? And sometimes you think she's going to the bathroom or something, or she's texting, but no, no. This is happening a lot now. When mine pauses, it's because I'm taking notes
Hmm.
because I'm getting ready for the podcast or I'm writing a review. Her up there though, this never happens. It never pauses. She goes to the bathroom, she probably leaves the door open, and she's just listening to the TV. So it kept happening. And at one point she came downstairs. I'm like, it's been really quiet up there periodic. She's like, yeah, I keep listening to all the monologues when they're going. And I'm like, honey, I think you like this. She says, I'm curious about it. I'm like, this really isn't very horrific. I watched it again And again, she commented about like, stopping to listen to some of the monologuing from upstairs. So it's like it's very captivating, the Hugh Grantiness of it, and the maybe just like the eloquent pithiness of it. I was telling her about it, and I was saying how one of the reasons that I love watching this, and we were making the point earlier that we're never getting deep into the weeds, into any of the details, right? And whether or not the things he was saying, some of them were a little inaccurate, he's just giving very surface level generalities, right? We're not getting into the weeds. And I was saying, honey, you ever try and explain something to someone that, that has to do with your work or something technical in art? She's an artist, and you have trouble explaining it. And then someone else asks the question a different way and you answer it a different way. And you find the one sentence answer that nails it perfectly for almost any listener. Whereas before, the 10 sentence answer was not getting you anywhere. And I said, this movie is all of those aha moments of the one sentence answers that everyone gets in the shortest words possible. And everyone's just like, oh my gosh, I get it. Like, this good point, I get it. This good retort, I get it. This overview, I get it. It's not like anyone's going to be sitting there shaking their head like, wait, what's he mean by that? That's not happening in this. This is really smartly written in that sense. But again, my kind of take home message to this is that this was like a lecture hall repartee for me. And again, this is who's going to speak out in that lecture hall. It's seldom the idiot. And if it's the idiot, the fool, if you will, to use the Cabin in the Woods reference, it's the one funny thing, like, yeah, but she was hot,
Yeah,
some
exactly.
funny thing that gets a giggle. And then it's like, but then someone comes back with the philosophical answer to that, but he got to be part of the conversation. But usually people are only speaking out when they are confident in the result the room will give them, right? You're not getting a bunch of haphazard, ill thought questions unless they are inherently thoughtful and asking you to provide the eloquent answer. And that's what this whole movie is. Even like you said, when Sister Paxton is calling him out for his wet hair, I don't think she knew that at the time. She just was
Hmm.
wondering, why the hell does he have wet hair? And then later she's like, aha, that was it all along. But then she's calling it out, and she's calling it out in a way that is thoughtful and poignant and concise, right? So everything down to leading her to his, I don't know what I'll call it, coven of jailed zealots. Uh,
Oof.
I've got so many questions. This is, by the way, this movie, we all have our suspension of disbelief meter. And when I start to think about this coven of caged women and the acts that they carry out, that's actually where my suspension of disbelief truly starts to fall apart. It doesn't mean that it affected my enjoyment of the movie. I wasn't really thinking about it until later. The movie doesn't give you a chance to think about it. It's constant repartee and revelation, right? It's constant intellectual stimulation. But when I'm jotting down notes and I'm rereading my notes, which is not a process most people go through when they're watching a movie, right?
Hmm.
That's where I made notes about his weird locks. Totally doable. Metal in the ceilings and walls. I don't know how much it takes, but I'm sure it's quite doable, especially if you're designing the house or building the house. The fact that all of his windows look like they were from a stronghold, they're all very small or very narrow, almost like arrow slits, all very doable. The fact that there was some structure on the other side of this downward hill behind his house and he just had a tunnel built. Okay, we're getting a little more costly, but realistically, quite doable. I mean, you know what I mean? Like this,
Hmm.
but the brain breaking the women down, I get. Getting them to follow this script and play this game, regardless of their willingness to kill themselves, that starts to get interesting to me. And then have another one come up after the first one is dead and posing and basically acting dead. Like, you're asking them to act and not just carry out some like prophetic, yes, you are a conduit of this divine purpose. So it's like that's where it all kind of falls apart to me. But again, I want to be really clear. I'm breaking this down, but it never affected my enjoyment of the movie.
No, and you're absolutely right. And a couple of things you said when like everyone looks at that one line that shuts things down. So I like what he has to say about the Haitian, like they went to Haiti and handed out Bibles because everyone is you know out of homes and broke and poor, and here come these people giving you food and Bibles. Like they're that's a good point, but I think that's just like a meme, is what he's saying. But it's when you see a good meme, you're like, yeah. But then you think
Mhm.
about it later and you're like, wait, what? And I think that's what this movie does a great job of. It kind of keeps you in, it keeps you in like it's like advertising. You know, when you watch an ad, they want to keep you in just like one. And there's like one and two. One's just like you see a Coke ad, you're like, yeah, I want Coke. They don't want you in two. You're like, why is this ad here? Why is that person there? Who's that person? They don't want you doing that. They want you to just be in one. And I think that's what this movie does a good job of the first time around, because never once while watching this in a theater the first time was like, wait, have these ladies been in there for years? Is he just sending them vapor? Like, how long is this process? How many people come here? Like, I never asked any of those questions because I just enjoyed the ride. Like, when you're on a roller coaster, you don't go, I wonder how long this has been here. I wonder how many screws are, like, is this safe? Like, what's the speed? You're just going, and it's over. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. So I think that's what this movie does. It's like a good roller coaster. You don't think about all the nuts and bolts, but you're right. Once you start looking over it, I think that's when you can not poke holes. But what's interesting? When you watch this again, even if you do poke holes, they're very interesting holes because you're like, oh, wait, what he said. You know what's interesting? Maybe they wrote what he said, saying it like it's fact. So people left the theater being like, yeah, did you hear about Horace? And like, oh man, he said all this, but like that's not true. So maybe they're even trying to get you to believe things and control that. So it's a very interesting narrative that they set up here. And I like that, like you said, the first time you watch it, you're just with it. Like for me at least, I was with it. Like I really dug it. And I grew up as like a pastor's kid, man. So I do know that control is a thing. And so when he said control, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like, but yeah, I was like, how does he keep these ladies down here? They're acting, they have pie. Do they bake the pie? Like, but those are questions. If the movie was bad, you would be asking. Like, John, you would like, if this movie was bad, you and I would probably ask that question.
Did he
But
train them to do the weird behind the back bone cracking prayer?
maybe I think they're stuck right in those cages with no room. Are they just, but then that means years of arthritis, right? And like those fingernails were long. That's months. So has he had them down there for a decade?
Good question.
No one's caught him. But I didn't. Did you ask that question the first time you watched it?
Well, the
Do you think
question
that?
I
Do
had was how are there so many of them?
you think he meets them out and like charms them? Because he's so bland. Like if Mr. Reed walked into a bookstore, he could be totally sociopathic and charming. Do you not? Do you think so?
Sure. I wonder if the prequel to this is actually him starting a cult of a bunch of people lost and looking for some kind of divinity to either blame their woes upon or to solve their woes. And then that cult became his first round of caged coven.
No, that's a great point. And do you think he he the two sisters in this movie, they're not lost and they aren't broken. They're just doing their jobs. And so that's why he probably, do you think that's why he has a harder time manipulating them? They're not easily like they're not former addicts that just found religion. They're not like they're not like so in my dad's church there's all they also had like AA there and other like narcotics and all that, and a lot of people who were recently sober came to church because they like refound it, and they were always like the most passionate. So I'm like, you could probably manipulate these people pretty good. Not that you would. I didn't think that as a 12-year-old, but you see how like a lot of new Christians or like a lot of people have been beaten down in life or easily controlled. Like these two weren't that. So I think he just thought he could control them, and it went terribly for him. Do you think when he was in?
He could have been relying on the luxury in his from his perspective of their youth. Because that's the thing too. No matter how well read you are when you're 18, 19,
Yeah,
20
yeah,
years old, you're still pardon the expression, but especially if you're a listener who's this age, but you're still kind of like a fucking 18, 19, or 20-year old. Your confidences and your confidences are high in the things that you feel like you know, and your wisdom is low by virtue simply of the fact that you haven't had as many experiences or time logged on this planet. You haven't been wrong as many times as the same you when you are 38 as when you are 18. And those extra 20 years were all adult years. When you're 18, really kind of building off of age 14 for trying to get a handle of wisdom. And when I look back at myself, no matter how smart I thought I was, even when I was 25, I now feel like, wow, 25-year-old John was an idiot. It, it doesn't mean that I wasn't smart or wise for a 25-year-old. P.S. I wasn't. But it doesn't mean that one isn't. It's just that it's such a fledgling version of the more adult self leading even the most average life. So he might have been relying on something like that. And frankly, I was about to say Sarah Paxton, who was in some horror movies
Oh,
we
cheap
discussed years
thrills.
ago. Sister Paxton is, in this case, less confident. She does have a younger frame of mind. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
you've already saved 8 people. I haven't baptized anyone.
Hmm.
It's like she is in fact viewing this as a way of judging herself instead of, I don't know what, some people are going to have a better set of opportunities than others, in the random cross section of people we could draw to attempt to save. But again, she's worried about how this looks, obviously, as well. The other one isn't as worried, but she's had more success. Why has she had more success? I don't know. But
She
but
can read
again,
the
we're
room better. The older one, I think. She's more worldly for sure. Um,
sure she definitely comes across
like
that way.
the like when she's talking about the intellectual threat, like she kind of and she knows he's watching her. She's she's seen a lot more than Paxton has. I think because she knows to look for that. I don't think Paxton knows to look for that yet, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah. It's but again, another curious thing too is that someone might think like when they're watching this movie the first time, like, oh yeah, this is what he does. He, finds people who are trying to save people and flips the script on them. I don't know if you can get away with that on a regular basis in a small town in British Columbia. I don't know if you can get away with that in a metropolis, even if you're always luring them to your same place. If there is that common element that these people are disappearing in around this locus, if you will, there more patterns could emerge. Realistically, he's fishing from very different ponds each time he finds victims.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe this time it's from an AA meeting that he sits in on.
Oh,
Maybe this time it's some homeless person or homeless people he finds. Yeah, this time, sure, it's the Mormons. Maybe this other time it's because there's some kind of a convention in town. That's a bunch of out of towners. But it's like I feel like if he's always relying on the people who are going around doing this, I think it's going to make it easier in the long run. Not that this movie had to be concerned with this, right? But
mm-hmm.
that's not the point of the movie. But I feel like that would create a problem for him in the long run. It's just more likely that one would get caught because you would have more of a pattern, and that pattern would have a geographic locus.
He's been smart, hasn't he? Until this time. What was his downfall here, John? Like what why did this go astray for him? Because it's a horror
Why did
movie,
this? Why did this go astray? Well, right. Did it go astray because the script said
and
so?
there's
It's
always
funny you say it.
for lack of a better term, a final girl who finds her strength. Like it's what went wrong for him here?
Yeah, that's curious. I mean, so I
I'm
want
dropping
to
some questions on you,
right.
John.
I
I'm
want to
sorry, man.
ignore the fact that one of his zealots played true to script until that one little bit at the end that it's not
Mhm.
real. Boy, I for me that's hard to believe too. She was with all the other crap that she did, like I guess he's got cameras down there, so it needed to look good if he was watching, perhaps, right? But just seems to me if you're really that like broken down there, I'm a little surprised at that. But either way, let's go past that though. That aside, maybe the girls figured it out, right? I kind of fear that he would be very likely to succeed most of the time, even with these two girls. I think that it is a little bit the script, but again, this movie throws some curveballs, right? So he kills one of the girls. First off, when that happened, that shocked the crap out of me. I did not
Yeah.
expect him to do that, but I guess she was enough of a threat that he was trying to eliminate a significant danger. But if you're really trying to kill someone, don't you do a better job? That seemed careless. But and then she comes to at just the right time. Okay, that's writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he got stabbed in, well, not the throat, but like up between the throat and his mandible, something that was survivable. Boy, like the movie really, at that point, the movie is really trying to just throw a bunch of curveballs at us. Like they're now we're just the ones being toyed with at this point, I think is what's happening.
Yeah.
For for 70 minutes, we're watching this very clever repartee. And then the last 20 minutes, they're like, okay, what are the horror movie rules again? All right, let's drop them all on the viewers.
Mm-hmm.
In a good way. It worked. I really enjoyed it. But again, that's where a lot of these cliches are happening. He kills her. You didn't expect it. Oh no, she wasn't really dead. The other one stabs him. Oh, it's something that he could survive because it was a whole lot of pulling the rugs out from under us in a very fun way.
Yeah, oh no, for sure. Um, and I have another question. Why is like religion such a great thing for horror? Like what? Because you think about The Exorcist, you think about Exorcist movies, The Conjuring, demons, hell, Constantine, like ghosts. Is it just because like cult movies as well, like The Wicker Man and all these with cults? And talk about a successful scheme. That first Wicker Man, geez Louise. But they like what makes religion such an interesting, because I mean, do you think it's the real world stuff? Like the directors here said that they said that religion is terrifying. They said it can be terrifying from history and what it has made people do. It can be terrifying in rituals, whether those are rituals that are subservient to the idea of what religion truly is or become steeped in mythology. But he's like, he's like, I think religion can steer people down certain ideas and beliefs and control others with it. But then you get movies like The Exorcist, The Pope's Exorcist, The Conjuring, like what, like even like The Mist, like with the fundamentalists there, like what makes religion such like a well traveled thing for horror?
Well, because when you're in a horror movie, the religion is usually being weaponized,
Yeah.
right? It's either being weaponized against the protagonist, or there's the gravity of the opposite end of God and the church, right? So it's either the most horrible, infernal of possible consequences, or this thing that is supposed to be a bastion of comfort and hope and faith is being weaponized against you. But really, for me, especially when you bring in the cult aspect of it, is that if if a crazy person comes at me swinging a baseball bat or a knife, that can be scary, but that's just a person that I'm going to try to fight off, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone, has the wrong idea about me at a bar, I feel like I can deal with it, right? Well, or I hope I can.
Yeah, yeah.
We often have more confidence than reality will dictate and the randomosity of how it can go down, right?
A dude
But
in a
it is
bar is
it,
better than Pazuzu.
right, but it's rational. No, you see that's but like with when it is a person who you perceive as basically crazy or brainwashed, not wrong or enraged, I feel like that is scarier. I feel like if someone who isn't even very threatening, like a 90-year-old woman holding a knife, that 90-year-old woman is coming with me with a knife, just spit and swears because she's from New Jersey and I stole her cab. I'm gonna be like, okay, lady, I can handle this. If that same woman is speaking slowly about how this is going to bring back the Dark Lord or what's going to happen to my soul, and like you hear that she believes it, I don't know, man. She's just given herself a little quite a bit more edge
Yeah.
because now it scares me because to me that's crazy and crazy mental illness. Well, let me rephrase: violent mental illness is scary. It's not the kind of thing you can predict. It's not that same person coming at you with a knife.
Like
I
look,
think I
yeah,
I
that's a
think
great
that
point.
the belief makes it scary.
And like look at the mist. That character's horrifying. She's worse than any of the demons or the monsters that came in the mist through because of the government. Like she rallies people around and becomes this force of nature, like destructive nature, even when everything's trying to kill you. And also I think there's one thing about being killed by Jason, but there's another one having your soul dragged to hell where you're going to be eternally tortured. That is just terrifying. So it's yeah, no, I think you're right. It's either a bastion of hope that can be turned against you, or it just represents hell and the demons. So it's like vampires. Like it's a very fluid thing that you can use uh for horror. And I'm happy that these directors, this was supposed to be the directors, one of their first movies. And they said when they started writing it when they were young, they're like, we have no idea how to write this. We're not fluid in any of these religions. So they put it away. It's like they waited a good plus 10 years and then they wrote Quiet Place. They wrote The Boogeyman, who stars Sophie Thatcher, which you reviewed and you liked The Boogeyman with her in it. She has a nice, like, raspy voice in that, like Sister, oh, I forget her name. Sister, not Paxton, Barnes. I like her a lot. But they put it away for many years. And then I think they did a lot of research. And I don't know. I think they're like decades or 10 plus years of research helped them with this because even though they never go in depth into theology, it's still really interesting the monologues that he has, if that feels fair to you. So I'm happy
Oh
they
yeah.
waited. Like I'm happy a 17-year-old didn't write this because I might want to puke. Like I'm happy that 28-year-olds wrote it, or maybe older 40-year-olds wrote it after some world experience. I think that's what makes it better. So I don't know, John. I don't want to keep up too late, but I really enjoyed this conversation and I dropped some questions on you. But I think that's why this movie's good because you can do
Yeah,
that.
this is absolutely the movie where like if two people were walking out of the theater, they're having a conversation. They're not talking about where they're going to dinner. They're talking about something from that movie that they've been waiting to talk about until the credits ended or whatever, until they walked out. Like this is one of those movies.
You know what's interesting too is, real quick, the directors were saying that um, Hugh, like that what Hugh did, he studied every single line of dialogue in pre-production, and then he applied an approach for every single one of those moments. And he's like, once we were on set, he could live as the character, and he was having fun. And I think he was having fun sharing the ideas with Paxton and Barnes. So like Hugh Grant put together giant books for this movie, and he prepped. And on set, you could see him having fun. And everything I read in the interviews is he loved the two actors as well. Like he loved Sophie Thatcher and he loved Chloe East because they could keep up with him. And they said on set with him, there's like no BS. He's not a jerk. It's just like you got to match him. And I guess they matched him. And you could feel that energy in the room. So I think there's like a good synthesis of like actors gelling. And Hugh Grant just came, like, you can see the joy in his face when he's dropping that Monopoly monologue, and there's good reason why he's
It
up
was
for
a
so many
fun
awards. Yeah,
monologue.
exactly. But he knew every word. He knew how to deliver those words, and it's just perfect. Like I love when he's like, oh, "There's metal in the roof. Are you okay with that?" Like the way he says it. But that's like 30 plus years of a career to be able to do that. So I think between the production designer, the cinematographer, taking a break, getting older, doing more research, writing this, finding two actors who were grew up in the Mormon church, and then Hugh Grant, who was looking for a change and took it serious. Like this is kind of what you want to. This is like remember Topher Grace is in this movie. Remember in Good Company when he's talking about like what's the word, synergy? Remember that
Hmm.
speech he does? Synergy. Like that's like there's a synergy to this
But in that
movie.
movie, he was giving a horrible example
Yeah,
about
exactly.
basically just advertising for their own company's products or something.
Yeah, really bad. Um,
Movie though.
but like, and also too, we didn't talk about it, but I love the Radiohead thing about how they had a song, then they got sued, then they sued Lana Del Rey for like infringement. Like that's a really
The Air
great,
I Breathe, and then
yeah,
yeah, Creep, and then the Lana Del Rey song. Yeah.
like that's a great bit, and that felt really inspired because like you know how you said that that's an aha bit. We're like, oh, and so I dug it, and I'm glad we talked about this, John. Any final thoughts about it? Oh, I'm gonna
So
do something,
good.
John.
So good. So well crafted. Oh, what are you doing?
It 2024 horror draft.
Oh,
There's a lot of good
horrible.
ones. I think you could spit this out pretty quick. What's your first pick? I'll give you first pick.
We're doing 2024 horror
And
draft.
also, John, between Infested and this, there's some great lights on timers. Remember the timer bit in Infested?
I don't remember the timer, but that was 2023.
Oh yeah, but it got the Shutter release this year, I think. But remember when they turned the thing on for 45 seconds and I had to run through the hall light?
Oh,
Hall,
right, right. The
yeah,
lights.
yeah. All
Yeah.
right, so what's your first pick?
The
Oh,
substance.
that's a good one. What a great movie. I already pre-ordered the Blu-ray. I'm gonna take In a Violent Nature.
And I will do this. I'm taking heretic.
I'll take
Heretic.
I'll take Smile too.
Okay, I was gonna say that, and then I pivoted.
And then you saw my face going.
uh,
I,
okay. I'm gonna go immaculate.
oh, good one. I'm gonna take Mads.
I didn't see that.
Oh,
That's
it's
the
so
one
good.
shot one, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I love it.
Okay. All right. Now it's just 1 year, so I enjoyed VHS Beyond. Tarot was a pleasant surprise, but it doesn't deserve to be anywhere near this list. Okay. It's when you watch it, it's hardly a horror movie, in many ways. But I'm gonna say House of Spoils. If you are a foodie, you will love that movie.
Oh, I like that. House and Oscar winners in it as well. House of Spoils. All right, I'm gonna take Red Rooms. That movie
I didn't
has
see
is
I didn't see that
incredible
either.
and it's just
Yeah.
lived in my memory. Oh wait, I have what's left? There's a lot left.
You
Oh
know,
man. Oh.
I really enjoyed this. I don't know if it should be the pick though, but I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna say Asriel.
Oh yeah, you're a fan of that.
Yeah, honestly, it's more of a stylistic like for me because there's zero dialogue. That's a risky, tough thing to do. So like if I'm just judging it for the horror, I'm like, yeah, it had some great intense action, whatever. I really enjoyed it. It was really intense. But the fact that they did this great action, this really dire and intense action in very many different ways, but carrying this, I guess I'll call it story along without dialogue. Like that's really cool. Very few movies do the not the communication barrier route well. Like I actually like The Shrine for the same reason from 2010, where our protagonists all were speaking English, but everyone in the town was basically speaking Polish, but they weren't giving you subtitles, so you don't know what anyone's saying who's trying to kill them in this cult. It's a cool feel. So
Oh,
Asriel for me.
I like it. So, I mean, there's Humanist Vampire left, and I love that. There's oh man, there's so many. Blink Twice, I actually really
I
enjoyed.
haven't seen either of those.
Abigail's fun, Oddity's fun, Cuckoo's fun. Oh, Stop Motion's a real nut kicker.
I haven't
Trap
seen
is Trap is like lived in my memory. Girl with the Needle crushed my soul. Nosferatu's really good. Oh, I'm gonna
I've seen
take.
none of these. None of these that
Oh,
you just listed. I've seen none of them. Or I saw
oh,
Trap. I'm sorry.
that's a fun one. But okay, so for me, it's coming down to First Omen. I'm gonna take Strange Darling. I
What's
love
that?
Strange Darling.
Didn't see that either.
Oh man, that movie's great. I love Strange Darling so much. So I'll
All
take
right.
that.
So I get one more, you get one more, right?
Let's see. I have five. You have five. You have
Okay.
Substance, Heretic, Immaculate
Already picked
Houses.
five?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do six. Who cares?
I was stressed out about my next pick. I would say the first Omen
Okay,
if I was to add another.
that's a
I
good
thought the
one.
first Omen was done really, really. really well. And even though they pulled the classic fan film kind of thing that like even like The Force Awakens did it, where you're replaying a lot of great kind of scenes from past movies, even though it's not a remake. They did a good job of spinning them original, in a kind of original way, even though they're giving you the old playlist.
I
So that, yeah.
I agree. It hits the same beats, but it's also a lot of fun. Makes me happy. All right, I'm gonna take. What do I have? Oh, stop motion, because that's probably the movie that freaked me out the most this year.
Where
So I'm
the
gonna take stop motion. That's a
kind of
mean
this
one.
stuff.
That's a mean one. But John, this was lovely, and I kept you up too late. But thank you for joining me, man. And any plugs before we get out of here?
You know, my only plug. I often fear that a lot of like our really great old episodes kind of disappear into the ether when a lot of the carriers for like podcasts only like will keep things for so long or so many episodes. But my like this podcast, man, if you go back to like the early 100s, we had episodes on like Bram Stoker's Dracula and The Cure for Wellness and oh, why can't I think the Office Mayhem thing? Not
Oh yeah,
Mayhem
mayhem.
though.
Yeah,
The
the
Belko
Belko experiment.
experiment. Oh man, we had some super bangers like hundreds of episodes ago that I still think back to and occasionally listen to. I'm listening to myself, but it's like, talking to you, having a conversation that we had, and I'm listening to it. It just feels like another conversation. But I'd say if you can, folks, try and dig up some of our golden oldies. Don't go too far back though. The sound wasn't great before episode like 70 sometimes, but yeah, like find The Cure for Wellness. Listen to Mark wax poetic about Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, pick ones you love, and I'll just re-release them. I've been doing
All
that. Well,
oh
I've done
God, so
I've done
many.
Event Horizon. I've done Bram Stoker's. I've done like
God,
five of
that was a
ours.
great one. Okay, you re-release them periodically. I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear
I do.
that,
I
man.
do MFF classics.
They get okay. They're getting saved.
Yeah, and hey, listen, I forgot to put long legs in here.
Oh, and I didn't see it yet. I didn't see
Can
that either.
can I put long legs instead of stop motion?
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
I'll allow
But
it.
yeah, listen to our old episodes. We had some great ones. John will pick some. I'll release them as classic episodes. Just let me know which ones, and I'll re-release. I mean, it's easy content, and we get listens. So John, do it. And everyone's not going to go back 400 episodes and listen. So, um,
I
yeah.
don't know why anyone who, if this is your first episode, I feel like you owe it to us to go back and listen to every single episode by the release of next episode. I don't know if you'd have enough time to even sleep, but
Yeah, it's dude, John, this is good. This was a good one. I'm happy. And also, Cure for Wellness is good. And it hasn't been that long, but I love our Predator episode. You and I covered some great stuff in Predator. When people
this
ask for
is
me to share episodes, I include the Predator one.
totally weird tangent, but
Yeah, exactly. That's why, because that was
when
brilliant.
when I watched this yesterday, one of my additional viewings later that night, I watched Love Actually, and I doubled down on Hugh Grant charm.
Well, he's the best. He needed more dancing in this movie. But John, thank you for joining me, man.
Yeah, good time.
All right, so for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, for John Levengood, this is Movie Sons of Flicks. We'll see you next week.